Very often when the guitar student starts to develop some nascent theoretical knowledge, the major 7 chord becomes one of the first problems they encounter. We start to figure out what's going on with chords, and we start to understand key signatures, and then some of that information starts to clash. In the major 7 chord, we have 2 locations where we can find it in the diatonic key. It's on the 1 chord and the 4 chord. The 5 chord is the other major chord. 1, 4, and 5 are major. They're your primary chords. But the 5 chord has a dominant 7 quality when its 7 is added. The 1 and the 4 will have major 7s. In jazz music, we generally save time by circling the 7 to tell you it's major 7. Often you'll see a capital M for major and a lowercase m for minor, or you actually write MAJ for major. As you know, chords are built in stacked thirds. Piano students consider those snowmen. When you see thirds in music, you'll see a note on a line, the next line, and the next line. Those are thirds above, or in a space, the next space, and the next space. You're skipping one note in between, so you get up to a third. You go from a root past the second to the third, a line past the space to a line, or a space past the line to the next space. The 7 is another third added on. Root to 3 is a third, 3 to 5 is a third, and 5 to 7 is a third. If it's a major third from the 5th up to the 7, then it's a major 7 on the key. It's 11 semitones, 11 out of the 12 semitones away from the root. If you played a C scale, for instance, always C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, C to D is a major second, 2 semitones. To D to E, another 2 semitones. E to F is a single semitone, so we're at 5 semitones so far. F to G is a whole step, 2 semitones, so we're at 7. To the A, 2 more semitones, that's 9 semitones so far. To the B is our 10 and 11th semitones. And B is 1 semitone at the end of the scale from the C again. So the major 7 is 11 semitones up from the root. Far easier though to step back a half step, 1 semitone to find it. So if we're in a C chord, we go to a root and go back 1 semitone, 1 half step to the B note, and that's your major 7. So there's your C major 7 chord. A C chord with C, the third is E, the third from that, the 5th of the chord is G, a third from that, the 7th of the chord is B. So we can remove the C note and get an open B in there for a C major 7. On these major 7s, I've shown you the triad with the 7 added on, and then just that little half step at the end to show you the distance between the E and the F, the 7 and the octave of the root. On a G major 7, you see there's an F sharp. In the key of G, Fs are sharp. If you have a G root on top of your chord, and you go back 1 fret, you don't go to the F natural of a G7 chord, a G dominant 7. You go to the F sharp of the G major 7. So the reason there's 2 locations in a major scale for it, the 1 and the 4, is because those are the chords that follow the half step. If you've got a half step from 7 to 1 at the end, then that 7 is clearly the major 7 of that root. If we start our chord on F though, we get a major chord, and when we get around to its 7, which is the 3 of the scale, so we go from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 of the scale to the root, to the 2nd, to the 3rd. The 3rd note in the scale is the 7th from the 4th note, and it's a half step away, a half step below it. So that's how we build our major 7 chords. The major chord has a major 3rd from root to 3, a minor 3rd from 3 to 5, so stacked thirds, a major 3rd from 5 to 7, so it's a major 3rd, a minor 3rd, and a major 3rd. That major 7 is 1 fret below the root. In the key of G, you have F sharps, so the major 7 will be the F sharp. G could also be the 4 chord in D. In D, the Fs are still sharp, so if we start on the 4 chord as a G, it's a major 7. If we played a G in a C scale, Fs are not sharp, so it's not a major 7, but a dominant 7 chord. So here are some of the more popular ones in the open position. The first one you learned actually was F. As a beginner guitarist, I give some leeway and say, well, maybe you can't bar these two notes here. Maybe you want to just play on the fingertip of the second string and leave the open E. There's a little bit of a clashy sound there. The major 7 note is a dissonant note. The chord is very lush with that little dissonance on top. So F major 7 has this open E note. E is 1 fret below the F note. Here's F. Lower this note 1 fret to the open, and you get an E. D major 7 has this D note going down 1 fret into this C sharp here. You can bar this little guy. Recognize again that lush, jazzy sound, kind of posh, one of my students called it. In an A chord, there's a convenient A in the middle of it. We can lower that 1 fret to the G sharp. There's your major 7 on that one. When you first learned your first G with me, it was a 3 to 4 string chord. We left off the bass notes and played this G. If you lower that 1 fret, you get the F sharp for the major 7. If you lower it again to the F natural, you get the dominant 7. The G has the G and B on the bottom. G7, you can put them down there too. The G major 7 is a little more awkward to get them. Very often we just don't bother. One thing you could do is play the F sharp and the G note at the bottom and let this finger mute the 5th string. So then you can get the high major 7 sound with a bass note G. Or just play the top 4 strings. Compare that to the F sharp note in the major 7, to the F natural in the G7, the major 7. I left off the E chord so far. We can find this E going down a fret to D sharp in the 1st fret, so we'd have open to the B note, D sharp and G sharp on the 1st fret. I don't love the sound of that one, so I don't use it very often. You could grab a D sharp at the 4th fret of the 1st string. That one sounds really pretty, but you can see that reach is kind of hard. So we don't often do E major 7 like that. There is another way to do it. As you know, we found that if we took this D and barred it, covered up the 4th string open with the F sharp, we can then move that chord around. Up a fret is E flat, up another fret is E major. Knowing that, we could take a D major 7, move it up 1 fret, and cover the open. So we got E flat major 7, or E major 7. I usually won't line up 3 fingers like that. I'll bar that. So there's a great major 7 chord with your root on the 4th string. Whatever note you're on there, there's an F sharp, major 7. G, major 7. There's one, and there's another. So that's how I would usually do E major 7, or one of the ways I would do it. The 7th note we haven't dealt with yet here is a B or a B flat. The major 7 of those chords looks like the A major 7. This was open 2, 1, and 2. We take that and create a movable bar chord out of it. So for B flat, you'd have 1 and 1 in your bar, 3, 2, and 3. Now just like this is a movable major 7, so is this. This is just 1 string lower. So the intervals here are root 5, major 7, 3, as they are here, root 5, major 7, and 3. With your bar, you have the 5th again. So that's a B flat major 7, B major 7, C major 7, C sharp major 7. This E major 7, which is kind of a handful, looks a lot better when we do it on F. So we could do an F major 7 where we take this F bar chord, move this root down a fret to the 2nd fret, Put a new finger in there to get it, and add the pinky back on the fifth. Root 5, 7, and 3. The bar covers another 5, and because we got another string, it's another root as well. So there's your F major 7, F sharp major 7, G major 7, G sharp major 7. So once you have these movable chords, you have a major 7 on the top set of strings, middle set, and bottom set. In a chord we'll learn later called the drop 2, we use this fingering. We just don't consider playing 6 strings, we just play 4. Same here, we won't play 5 strings, just the 4 in the middle, and the 4 on top of these. And that's a drop 2 chord. It's called the 3 on top drop 2, which we'll learn another day. So those are your major 7s. The major 7 note is 11 semitones above the root. More conveniently, it's 1 semitone below the root. It's found as the 1 and 4 in a major scale because we have 2 half steps. One precedes the 1 chord and one precedes the 4 chord. That means for each of those, their 7th is only 1 fret lower. Physically, to make a major 7 chord, just grab a chord you know, find a root, the D in a D chord, and lower it 1 fret. And do not mistake them for 7s. The C major 7 is not the C7. C7 is another name for C dominant 7, and it doesn't come from the key of C where Bs are natural. It comes from the key of F where Bs are flat. So in C7 you have a B flat. C7 or C dominant 7 has actually a flat 7. It's 2 semitones below the root. You've seen that before, but we'll talk about it another day too for clarification. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good Sunday. Bye.